Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and for today's viewing entertainment, here on the airfield map we have, I think it's Crewmax. It's difficult to tell really from the way he spelled it. I mean, it might be Chromax, I don't know. I swear you guys do this on purpose, just to amuse yourselves listening to me attempting to pronounce your names, and then inevitably just giving up and calling you Dave. Don't think I don't know what you're doing. Well anyway, Crewmax, because that's what I'm calling him, is in the T-29. The best Tier 7 heavy tank in World of Tanks. Change my mind, I dare you. I almost said the best Tier 7 heavy tank that there has ever been in World of Tanks, but that is patently untrue. See, if you go back far enough, and we're talking right back into the dim dark prehistory of World of Tanks, back when there were only 3 Tier 7 heavy tanks in the game, the IS, the Tiger, and this was by far the worst Tier 7 heavy tank imaginable. And it only took one change to overnight turn this thing into an amazingly good tank. You see the rangefinders sticking out on either side of the turret? They used to be part of the tank's hitbox, and they basically had no armour. It was almost as if that when the game designers were putting together the American tech tree, they were all sitting together at Wargaming headquarters, smoking their pipes and stroking their beards, saying to themselves, what can we do with the American heavy line that would be really funny? And then Serb stuck his hand up and said, I know what we can do, right. We'll give them a tank that's got the toughest imaginable frontal turret armour. I mean, so ridiculously overpowered that it can reliably bounce shots even from Tier 9s. Or Tier 10s, because back then Tier 7 heavies would have to fight Tier 10s. Well, what's funny about that? You haven't heard the punchline. We'll stick these two massive weak spots on either side of the turret that anybody could penetrate. And they all had a good laugh. And that's exactly what they did. Well, everybody at Wargaming had a good laugh, some time went by, and eventually the jokes started to get a little bit old, particularly if you were an American heavy tank driver. People were complaining. All of these American heavies are garbage. The T1 sucks, the M6 isn't that much better. The T29 wouldn't be too bad, except its armour is meaningless because it's got these giant ears that stick out and can be hit and penetrated by anybody. The T32 is kind of okay, I suppose, except its gun is useless. And don't forget the M103 and the T110E5 hadn't been introduced at this point. But the joke was getting kind of old, so eventually they relented and they removed the rangefinder boxes, those ears sticking out from either side of the turret. They were removed from the tank's collision model, and overnight the T-29 became the best Tier 7 heavy tank that World of Tanks has ever seen. Change my mind, I dare you. You can't, can you? There's a number of reasons why you can't. First of all, the gun. Horribly inaccurate, but hits pretty hard. It's even harder if the guy that you shoot at gets set on fire and doesn't bother to use his fire extinguisher. 320 alpha damage. Doesn't hit as hard as one of those Russian heavies with their 122mm guns, but it's got better penetration. 198mm. Not bad at all. How about the armour? Well, the turret front is legendary. 279mm. Tier 9s struggle to find anywhere to penetrate a T-29 from the front when it's hull down. You can penetrate the commander's cupola, but first you have to hit it. It's not a particularly big target, and it's rounded, so you have to hit it square on. Meanwhile, with a 320 alpha damage gun, the Oni is a one-shot kill for Chronax's 105mm gun. But there are certain things that just seem to be hard-coded into World of Tanks. If the enemy tank is a one-shot kill, your next shot will be a low damage roll, and your next shot will bounce harmlessly. And those hidden enemy tank destroyers that kept harmlessly blowing his tracks off earlier were just grateful to finally have something substantial to shoot at. Crewmax, clearly deciding that he'd rather that not be him, pulls back behind the rock and allows the Cheeto to move forward and satisfy the enemy tank destroyer's bloodlust. Crewmax avenges him by killing the AMX 1375, who, because he doesn't know what a minimap is, came around the corner expecting to get an easy kill on a P-43 and was very surprised to find a T-29 there as well. Speaking of P-43s, that enemy P-43 up there is going to be a problem if Crewmax is going to make it across this stretch of open ground without getting shot up. Why would he want to cross this stretch of open ground? Well, If he tries to make it across the airfield, he's getting shot up by invisible tank destroyers. The P-43 has moved and doesn't have a line of sight, and he kept testing the water there by poking out around the side of the rock to see if Sixth Sense went off, and it didn't, so he knew he was safe to cross. Meanwhile, despite their early advantage, the team are now starting to lose, particularly down at the southern end of the map. Now, the unusual thing about that Su-85 is that he's even down there in the first place, because he actually killed a friendly Su-85 earlier on in the middle of the map back there. He's not the only enemy tank destroyer who has taken advantage of the sudden lack of tanks down to the south to relocate. In fact, one of them landed an unsuccessful hit on Crewmax earlier, and we're going to be seeing him soon. Meanwhile, at least some of the tank destroyers that were hidden up there to the north have broken cover and gone looking for further kills. The Su-100 up there just killed the setter. Crewmax just took a speculative shot at the bushes on the ridge where the P-43 was earlier, hoping that he was still going to be there. Unfortunately, he wasn't. Hopefully that M10 RBFM has the situation under control to the north, because the fresh two threats have just appeared down to the south. The VK-3001H and the Stuart and Mill, who unsuccessfully put a shot into Crewmax earlier on the northern end of the map. Unfortunately for the T-67, the VK knew exactly where he was. Unfortunately for the VK, he didn't count on Crewmax still being here. Now, with a 320 alpha damage gun, he's only going to need to roll marginally higher than average to finish off this VK. So naturally, he rolls exactly 320, leaving him on 11 health. His gun hasn't quite finished trolling him just yet, not by a long shot. He considers chasing after the VK, but then realises that the Stuart and Mill is closing in from above. He's loaded high explosive. 420 alpha damage, 53mm of penetration. Doesn't get anywhere near 420 damage, of course, which is kind of surprising considering that the Stuart and Mill doesn't have more than 50mm of armour anywhere. Tries again with a high explosive, aims for the gun shield, and doesn't even get half of the 420 average damage. I think what actually happened there was he hit the gun and actually only splashed the Stuart and Mill with the high explosive blast. Well, the Stuart Mill, who probably has a broken gun, is backing off, and he's now taken 2 hits from artillery in that position, and that's 2 hits too many. So as long as the Stuart Mill isn't interested in the fight, and he does keep checking behind him just to make sure that that has remained the case, he goes looking for the VK. Where the hell did the VK go? Good question. It's possible, of course, that the VK is now on the other side of the rock, expecting to find a T-29 and thinking to himself, where the hell did the T-29 go? Oh yeah, that does in fact seem to be the case. Crewmax is now facing 5 enemies, and with the destruction of his last teammate, he's facing them alone. You know what that means, don't you, boys and girls? There's a Kolobanov's medal up for grabs. Of course, they all know exactly where he is, so he'd best start killing them fast. Starting with the Stuart Mill, checks behind him, doesn't see the Su-100 right in front of him, who somehow manages to screw up not once but twice. First, by managing the nearly impossible task of finding a spot on the side of the T-29's turret where his gun couldn't penetrate, and second, by electing to ram a tank that's 30 tons heavier than he is. And as quickly as that, there are now only 2 surviving tanks on the enemy team. Hang on a minute. He's only killed 2. There were 5 of them a minute ago. What happened to the third one? Funny you should ask that question. It turns out that the enemy WZ-131G fake tank, in his haste to get over here and add another kill to his collection, managed to score an own goal, which is probably not endearing him to his teammates like the enemy P-43 Biz on 5 kills, who now has the unenviable task of trying to kill a T-29 by lobbing high explosive at the front of its turret. That would have been the P-43's top gun, by the way. That was never going to happen. Not at this stage of the battle, but, you know, he did well. 5 kills in a Tier 6 medium in a Tier 7 battle. It's just unfortunate that he ended up in the position where he had to try to kill a T-29 from the front with a 90mm gun, which was never going to happen. And he only had 45 health remaining at that point. I mean, maybe he could have just attempted to keep Crewmax spotted for the artillery, but he's in a medium, not a light. The chances were pretty good that moving to a position from where he could spot Crewmax, he was going to get spotted himself anyway. And the artillery, the Gorilla, would pretty much have to land a hit on the T-29's engine deck at the rear of the turret to do any kind of appreciable amounts of damage to him. This is actually a reasonably well armoured tank, by the way, and I'm not just talking about the turret front, which is obviously incredibly good, but the hull at the front is thicker than the hull armour of a Tiger. It's 102mm, and it's not a flat slab of armour plate like the Tiger, it's actually sloped. And the side armour isn't that bad either, it's about 76mm, which isn't great, I'll give you that much, but it does at least allow you to side scrape against a large range of gun calibers, something that the M103 absolutely cannot do. And as far as mobility is concerned, yeah, okay, it's never going to beat an IS. The power to weight ratio isn't that great, but the top speed of 35 miles per hour definitely isn't slow. And this is a heavy tank, it weighs more than 60 tons. Stick this thing on the top of a slope with that 102mm of frontal armour, and on the way down it will easily beat 40 kilometers per hour. You really don't want to be on the bottom end of a slope, one of these things sitting at the top gunning its engine and licking its lips at you, unless you're in a KV5. In which case, bring it on, bitch! But that's a different story for a different video. Right now, where the hell's Artie? Oh, there he is. Nobody's really expecting the artillery to win this one, are they? Nah, just as well. And I'm particularly pleased to be showing you this battle today, not just because Crumax did well and won, and didn't really make any mistakes other than loading high explosive and expecting it to do as advertised, but this was his first ever Kolobanov's medal. I'm sure it's not his first steel wall, high caliber and Top Gun, but this is the first Kolobanov's medal he's ever achieved. So bloody well done for that. Of course, we should probably thank the enemy WZ-131G fake tank for scoring an own goal at the critical moment when he was one of the last 5 tanks left alive. Otherwise this Kolobanov's medal may not have been possible, but I like to think it would have been anyway. So well done, Crumax, very well played, and congratulations on your first ever Kolobanov's medal. Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed today's performance, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.